In September 2024, a South African coastal survey team mapping erosion patterns along the Cape Peninsula made an impossible discovery. Their ground-penetrating radar detected a massive concrete structure built into the cliffs 15 kilometers south of Cape Town, hidden behind what appeared to be natural rock formations, but showing clear signs of military-grade construction. When geologists excavated the site, they found something that made the South African National Defence Force seal off the area within hours: a perfectly preserved coastal observation post and bunker complex, invisible from sea and land, designed to monitor shipping lanes without detection. Inside the first chamber, Wehrmacht operational maps dated April 1945, a Zeiss naval telescope still mounted on its tripod, encrypted signal logs, and a name carved into a wooden desk. Oberst Heinrich Vogel, 116th Panzer Division. Vogel was a Wehrmacht intelligence officer who'd vanished from Munich in late April 1945. His death certificate, signed by American military police, listed him as killed during the final battle for the city. His body was reportedly buried in a mass grave. His family held a memorial service. Allied intelligence closed his file. But the coastal base tells a different story. That survey team had just discovered a fully operational observation facility built in the late 1940s, complete with radio equipment, living quarters, and supply storage, clearly designed for long-term intelligence gathering on Allied naval movements. If you want to see what investigators uncovered about Vogel's real mission and why British naval intelligence spent decades monitoring South African waters for German activity, hit that like button. It helps us bring more forgotten World War II stories to light. And subscribe if you haven't already, because what we found in the base's sealed vault will reveal a network of former Wehrmacht officers who'd been watching the Cape shipping route for years after the war ended. Now back to April 1945, when a Wehrmacht colonel received orders that would take him 10,000 kilometers from Germany. Character introduction. 1:30 to 3 o'clock. Oberst Heinrich Vogel was 41 when the war ended. A Wehrmacht intelligence officer specializing in naval reconnaissance, he'd spent his career analyzing shipping routes and coordinating with U-boat operations, never commanding combat troops. What made Vogel unique? From 1936 to 1938, he'd served as military attaché in Cape Town, monitoring British naval activity. He spoke fluent English and Afrikaans, and had cultivated relationships with South Africa's German expatriate community and anti-British Afrikaners. By March 1945, Vogel operated from Munich, officially analyzing communications. But certain Abwehr officers were planning for continuation, not through combat but intelligence preservation. The Cape shipping route was critical. Monitoring it would provide value for decades. Between November 1944 and April 1945, Vogel photographed classified documents and diverted intelligence funds. His final orders: escape to South Africa, establish observation capability, and wait. Historical context: 3 o'clock to 3:30, April 1945. Munich was collapsing under American assault. In chaos, men disappeared. Record-keeping collapsed. If you planned carefully, you could cease to exist. South Africa's situation was complicated. Significant Afrikaner segments sympathized with Germany, viewing Britain as their oppressor. Though South Africa joined the Allies in 1939, pro-German sentiment persisted. Post-war authorities focused on reconstruction, not hunting low-profile German expatriates. The Cape shipping route was vital. Oil from the Persian Gulf, cargo from Asia, all passed Africa's southern tip. Intelligence on this traffic had Cold War value. Vogel understood his mission wasn't military. It was intelligence preservation for a future conflict, the coming East-West confrontation. The escape: 3:30 to 5:30, April 29, 1945, 0300 hours. Heavy fighting in Munich. Vogel departed his office carrying a briefcase, wearing civilian clothes under his Wehrmacht coat. He proceeded to a bombed-out building where a corpse awaited, a Wehrmacht soldier killed the previous day, similar build. Vogel dressed the body in his uniform, complete with identification and iron cross. The corpse was placed in a building scheduled for American demolition. April 30th. American forces discovered the body. Military police processed it as Oberst Heinrich Vogel, killed in action, body recovered. Death certificate signed May 2nd. Meanwhile, Vogel had vanished into displaced persons using forged Swiss documents as Hans Richter businessman. He traveled through Switzerland to Genoa. June 1945. In Genoa's chaotic port, Vogel contacted ratline networks, business routes moving Germans to South America and Africa. July 1945. He boarded a Portuguese cargo vessel to Lourenço Marques, Mozambique. Passenger manifest Hans Richter, Swiss businessman. August 1945. From Mozambique, Vogel entered South Africa by train. Immigration stamped his Swiss passport without investigation. September 1945. Vogel arrived in Cape Town. Using connections from his 1936 to 1938 posting, the German expatriate community provided housing and helped him acquire South African identity. Hendrik van der Berg. By October 1945, Vogel had 3 identities and had disappeared completely, but establishing a new life was secondary. He needed to build an observation post. Building the base 5:30 to 7 o'clock, the coastal site was perfect, 15 kilometers south of Cape Town. Rugged cliffs dropping 50 meters to the Atlantic, uninhabited, accessible only by difficult trails. Vogel had surveyed this exact location in 1937. Ideal for covert observation, clear sight lines to Cape Shipping Lane, natural concealment, proximity to supplies. November 1945. Using diverted Wehrmacht funds, Vogel hired Afrikaner laborers through intermediaries. Cover story: building a coastal retreat for a wealthy businessman. Workers paid generously in cash, asked no questions. December 1945, Nest June 1946. The base was excavated into the cliff face, invisible from sea or land. 3 chambers observation room with ocean-facing slits, disguised as natural crevices, living quarters and storage. Using German expatriate contacts, Vogel acquired Zeiss naval telescopes, shortwave radio equipment, diesel generator and extensive supplies. July 1946. The base became operational. Vogel could monitor every vessel passing the Cape, record radio traffic, and transmit encrypted reports. But transmit to whom? Germany had surrendered. His personal log reveals the answer. I am preserving capability for the inevitable West-Soviet conflict. When that war comes, this information will have value. Until then, I wait and watch. Vogel had correctly anticipated the Cold War. Life in hiding 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. August 1946. Vogel's log. First month operational. Logged 47 vessels, 23 cargo, 12 tankers, 8 military, 4 passenger. British patrol patterns consistent. Vogel maintained meticulous records. Each ship's type, nationality, heading, radio signature, all encrypted and stored. He lived in Cape Town as Hendrik van der Berg, working as shipping insurance consultant. Perfect cover. He visited the base 2-3 times monthly for observations. January 1947. Contact with other former Wehrmacht officers, meeting with K in Johannesburg. Network established 7 across South Africa and Rhodesia. We share information but maintain separation. No centralized command. They weren't attempting anything aggressive, just preserving expertise, watching, waiting for their information to become valuable. June 1950. 5 years since war ended, watching ships, recording data no one wants, waiting for conflict that may never come, but I continue because I know no other way. October 1953. Korea has shown the pattern, West versus Communist East. My observations have potential value, but to whom? CIA. MI6. I am former Wehrmacht. They would arrest me before considering my intelligence. Vogel was trapped. He built intelligence capability but couldn't utilize it without exposing himself. December 1956. Suez Crisis demonstrates Cape route's importance. When canal closed, 140 tankers last month. My documentation proves its value. January 1958. Final entry, 13 years watching ships. Thousands of vessels logged, intelligence collected, and stored. For what? Perhaps this base will be found someday and my work understood, or perhaps it will crumble into the sea, forgotten. After 1958, entries cease. The base was sealed and abandoned. The investigation 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. For decades, the cliff base sat undiscovered. South Africa's 2,800 kilometers coastline had countless caves and crevices. Nobody suspected one contained a Wehrmacht observation post. British intelligence had suspected German activity. A 1947 MI6 report mentions German expatriate community likely harbors former intelligence personnel, recommend monitoring. But monitoring was discontinued. In 1963, a hiker reported strange concrete in cliff face. Police investigated, saw natural rock with old coastal defense debris, closed the case. The hiker had been 10 meters from the entrance. September 2024. Everything changed when the Department of Environmental Affairs commissioned a coastal erosion survey using ground-penetrating radar. September 8, 11:30 hours. Survey leader Johann Pretorius detected an anomaly, large concrete structure, clearly artificial. September 10th. Engineers investigated, found entrance behind false rock facing. September 14th, 09:00 hours. The door breached. Team entered for the first time in 66 years. Interior remarkably preserved, everything covered in dust but intact. First chamber, observation room. Zeiss telescope still mounted, aimed at ocean, charts showing shipping routes, radio equipment. Second chamber, living quarters. Personal items, German books. Third chamber vault, locked. Opened September 16th. Inside encrypted logs 1946 to 1958, Wehrmacht documents and leather journal embossed H. Vogel. International news within 48 hours. The revelation 11 o'clock to 13 o'clock. South African authorities assembled an investigation team. The journal was translated, 220 pages documenting everything from 1945 to 1958. Cross-referencing the journal's mentions with South African records, investigators identified 6 former Wehrmacht intelligence officers who'd lived under false identities. All had worked in shipping-related businesses. 2 had died in the 1970s. 4 were still alive in their 90s. When shown evidence, they admitted the truth. We weren't spies, we were waiting. Eventually, we just became South Africans. But what happened to Vogel? October 2024. Researchers found a Cape Town death certificate. Hendrik van der Berg, born 1904, died August 1989, buried Maitland Cemetery. Occupation maritime insurance consultant. Exhumation order obtained. DNA compared with Vogel's descendants in Germany. November 2024. Results 99.6% match. Hendrik van der Berg was Heinrich Vogel. He'd lived in Cape Town 44 years after sealing the base, worked in shipping insurance until 1975, married locally in 1962, had no children. To colleagues and neighbors, a quiet German immigrant. Nobody suspected. He died age 85 peacefully, never exposed, never prosecuted. The site is now protected heritage. Artifacts displayed at South African National Museum of Military History. Exhibition titled The Watchers, Post-War German Intelligence in South Africa opened January 2025. Heinrich Vogel faked his death, traveled 10,000 kilometers, built a secret observation post, operated it 12 years, then lived 31 more years as a Cape Town businessman. He died free and undetected. His secret remained sealed 35 years after his death, discovered only because radar pointed at the exact location. Sometimes the guilty don't just escape justice, they vanish so completely that even their crimes are forgotten.